Ever seen a boat flip clean over? This video is kinda messed up, but also sad. Apparently, way back on July 19th, 2009, this tugboat called the North Arm Venture was towing a giant barge loaded with fuel and stuff. They were going from Toba Inlet to Sechelt Inlet, but things went wrong when they were trying to turn. The tug flipped right over at around 12:50 p.m. Luckily, all 4 people on board were okay, even though 2 of them got a bit banged up. They ended up towing the whole mess, flip tug and all, to this place called Killam Bay with another boat. Have you seen those firefighter planes in action? They're dumping massive amounts of fire retardant with crazy precision. These training exercises are no joke. One pilot swooped down from the runway, did a fancy loop to line up perfectly, and then unleashed a ton of fire-stopping gel, like 9,000 pounds. It was so powerful it even wrecked the practice car they were aiming for. They even filmed it all to show how strong the stuff is. Of course, real fires are way bigger. Some planes can carry up to 75,000 kilos of retardant, blanketing huge areas. We're talking hundreds of meters to over a mile wide. This fire retardant is like a magic shield, stopping wildfires from spreading and saving homes and nature. It's pretty amazing how these pilots and their tricked-out planes work together to fight these massive blazes. The Tachin River in Thailand is a long one, almost 500 miles. Farmers use it all the time to transport their goods. But on December 21st, 2017, a soybean farmer wasn't having the best of days. He was trying to deliver his beans to a factory in his barge, but completely missed a giant bridge. Security cameras from a nearby restaurant caught the whole thing. It looks like the barge is about to smash into the first bridge support, but actually it was the second one that caused trouble. The barge tilted over to its side because the engine died and steering went wonky. The poor guy couldn't do anything to avoid hitting it. Luckily, no one was hurt because everyone was at the back of the barge. But the farmer wasn't exactly scot-free. He got a fine for driving with a suspended license, and another one for messing up the bridge. Not exactly the delivery he was hoping for. There was a nasty train crash in Agua Branca, Brazil on February 21st, 2021. Agua Branca is a pretty new town, and this accident really showed how important it is to have a good plan in place for emergencies. One train was apparently speeding, and its siren wasn't loud enough to warn the other train. They slammed right into each other. The first train got messed up real bad. They're not exactly sure what caused the crash, but it might have been something wrong with the brakes, or maybe the trains got confused about which track to use. The whole thing is a wake-up call for Agua Branca. As the town keeps growing, they need to make sure their trains have the best safety features and communication systems possible. Imagine this. Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 1st, 2008. Rush hour traffic is crawling across the I-35W bridge over the Mississippi River, a bridge that's been there since 1967, a trusty workhorse for commuters. Then at 6:05 p.m., everything went horribly wrong. The bridge just gave way, collapsing into the river in a shocking scene caught on nearby cameras. It was rush hour, so the bridge was packed. There were loud bangs, the ground shook, and then the bridge was gone. Footage from the US Navy showed the disaster in all its terrible detail. "13 people died and 145 were injured. Families were shattered and the city was left with a massive mess to clean up. This wasn't just a local tragedy, it was a wake-up call for the entire country. Bridge inspectors and engineers everywhere realized they needed to step up their game. All those bridges carrying millions of people every day, were they safe? The I-35W collapse forced everyone to take a hard look and make sure bridges weren't ticking time bombs. This happened back on March 24th, 2014, around 2:50 a.m. A CTA Blue Line train driven by a 25-year-old named Brittany Taishika Haywood totally missed the brakes at O'Hare International Airport Station. The train, which was pretty long, went right over the bumper at the end of the track and even climbed partway up an escalator. Investigators think Brittany might have fallen asleep at the wheel. Apparently, she had been working a lot of overtime. Luckily, nobody died, but 34 people did get hurt. This whole thing is a reminder that train drivers, bus drivers, all those folks who take us places, they gotta be well rested and follow the rules. Safety first always. Because of this crash, the CTA slowed trains way down entering the O'Hare station and made that slower zone a little bigger. Brittany unfortunately lost her job too. Ningde, China has a bridge that's seriously old school. We're talking over 900 years old. It's called the Weaning Bridge, and it was once the longest arch bridge in China, stretching a cool 321 feet. This bridge has been through a lot in its time, including a bunch of fires and rebuilds. The most recent fire happened on August 6, 2022, and it sounds pretty bad. The fire started around 9 p.m. and firefighters battled it for over 2 hours but couldn't stop it in time. They're still not sure exactly how it started. Despite the damage, there are plans to bring this old bridge back to life again. The DeSoto residents can finally go back home. They had to evacuate their houses on a Friday, June 7th after a big rig hauling 5,000 gallons of diesel fuel went up in flames. Luckily, the DeSoto Fire Department says no other vehicles were involved in the fire and the truck driver is okay. Bottled water disaster in Richmond, Texas. This happened on May 5th, 2021, around 10:30 a.m. at a railroad crossing on 2nd Street. A big rig hauling a bunch of bottled water got slammed by a train. The truck got split clean in half, and bottled water went flying everywhere, like a giant refreshing explosion. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. The truck driver, anyone else in the truck, and everyone on the train all walked away okay. This is a good reminder to always be careful around train tracks. Trains are no joke. At a battery recycling plant, things went boom. A rogue lithium-ion battery snuck into a batch of lead-acid batteries. Normally, the lead-acid batteries just get crushed, but this lithium battery went unnoticed and turned the crusher into a mini bomb. Luckily, the cameras caught the whole thing and nobody got hurt. This close call shows why sorting your batteries is super important. Different batteries need different goodbyes, and environmental agencies have the lowdown on how to do it right. So next time you have a dead battery, don't just toss it with the trash. Find out where it belongs to avoid any fiery surprises. Big trouble by the Lilagar River in India. Back in September 2019, the river decided to change its course, and wouldn't you know it, it ended up flooding a whole coal mine. The miners saw water coming from a safe spot as the river just kept flowing into their work area.
भारी रात रूप है जी है चले भैया आ रहे हैं यहीं पर बाप रे, भयंकर बुरा है जी। निकला जूता निकालना पड़ेगा।
Apparently, it had been raining non-stop for weeks, making the river super swollen and angry. Pictures from the mine entrance showed just how deep the pit was. The water slowly crept in, filling up the bottom first and then spreading everywhere. The miners got out of there before things got too bad, but some trucks and machinery got stuck underwater. Luckily, nobody got hurt. This happened in Mumbai on June 28, 2015, at one of the city's busiest train stations, Churchgate Station. A local train coming from Bhayandar totally missed a stop and slammed into the end of the platform. It sounds like the driver didn't brake in time, and the first car of the train ended up hanging off the platform. The crash messed up the train's equipment and the electrical wires overhead. Luckily, only 5 people got hurt, but it could have been much worse. There was a special buffer at the front of the train that helped stop it from causing even more damage. But hey, this is a good reminder that train drivers gotta be on their toes. The driver, guard, and inspector on duty all got suspended because they were blamed for the accident. The crash messed up train service for a while too. Imagine this. Hangzhou, China, a big city between Shanghai and Ningbo. It's booming with business. But on May 18th, 2019, things got a little crazy. A truck driver tried to squeeze under a pedestrian bridge that wasn't exactly built for trucks. It seems he way overestimated how much space he had. The back of his truck ended up scraping the bridge, and bam, the bridge came down. Luckily, a white car was zooming under the bridge at that exact moment. Thankfully, the driver had super quick reflexes and floored it, getting out of there just in time. Local news say the truck was loaded way too high, with stuff sticking out way past the limit. The driver got in trouble for sure, but maybe it wasn't all his fault. Maybe whoever loaded the truck didn't pay attention to the height restrictions either. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but this whole thing is a reminder to double check your truck height before hitting the road. 2018 was a brutal year for Vanderhoof, BC, and other parts of the province. Wildfires were out of control, way worse than anything they'd seen before. Over 2,100 fires ripped through more than 1.3 million hectares of land. On top of the usual fire dangers, Vanderhoof even had a fire tornado.
You said get in the truck, right?
These fires messed up everything for small businesses in the area. People couldn't get to work, tourists stayed away, and a bunch of buildings got wrecked. Things were looking pretty grim, but here's the good news. Folks came together to help. A program called the Wildfire Business Transition Project got launched to give businesses a hand. With a bunch of support from Western Economic Diversification Canada, they were able to provide resources to over 2,600 businesses. This helped keep the local economy afloat and saved people's jobs. It shows that when disaster strikes, working together as a community is key to getting back on your feet. The old Tappan Zee Bridge in New York, the one that stretched over the Hudson River, got blown up on January 15, 2019. Originally, they wanted to take it down carefully, piece by piece, to protect the fish in the river, but when they started hearing creaks and groans from the bridge, they noped out of that plan. Explosives were the safer option at that point.
That was savage. That was savage. Totally worth it.
The new bridge, which cost a whopping $4 billion, opened in 2017. Officially, it's called the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge, but everyone still calls it the Tappan Zee Bridge. There's even a movement to make that the official name again. This happened in a small town called Murano, down in southern Brazil. Luckily, nobody living nearby got hurt. We don't have all the details, but from the videos, it looks like a bunch of train cars derailed. It all started near a small hill by the tracks and one car tipped over. Then, like a domino effect, a whole bunch of cars ended up piled up in a ditch. Yikes. This video is from Pescadero, a little town in California. Back in January 2023, they had tons of rain and flooding for days on end. Things got so bad that on the 14th, the fire department got called out to a crack in the road, but it wasn't just any crack. When they checked it out, lights were causing road closures everywhere. The California Highway Patrol was basically begging people to stay home and off the roads. Wandur, a small town in southwest India, sits right next to the Kalia River. Floods are a real pain here whenever it rains super hard. On August 9th, 2018, the town got slammed with a massive downpour. It was a real test for the roads. They're built with special tunnels to let floodwater through. The rain came down in buckets, and the floodwaters charged towards the busy road. Everyone was watching to see if the fancy tunnels would hold up. Well, the road itself did great, but the tunnel underneath? Not so much. The water just overpowered it. May 2018 in Hawaii was no aloha for the big island's Mount Kilauea. This volcano erupted in a big way, splitting the earth open and launching molten lava hundreds of feet into the air. In Leilani Estates, the streets became a nightmare scene with cracks spewing lava everywhere. Safety is key during an eruption, but not everyone gets the memo. There's another photographer in the video way too close for comfort. Both cameramen eventually had to hightail it out of there as the lava got closer. The eruption wasn't just a light show though. From May 3rd to 11th, local authorities reported that the lava flows destroyed 26 homes and 10 other buildings, burning everything in its path over a 117-acre area. This is a good reminder that Mother Nature is a powerful force, and sometimes you just gotta respect her from a safe distance. Picture this, the Gulf of Mexico, nice and calm, then flames erupt out of the water like a fiery monster. Turns out, a gas leak from an underwater pipeline sparked a huge blaze on the ocean surface. Videos of this went super viral on July 2nd. The fire looked like it was boiling the water with bright orange flames. Luckily, the fire was put out pretty quickly, about 150 yards from an oil drilling platform in Mexico. No one got hurt and there were no evacuations needed according to Pemex, the Mexican oil company. This is a good reminder that even the calmest places can surprise you. The Dubar River in Pakistan is a usually calm tributary of the Indus, a massive river that snakes its way through the country. But in 2023, things went sideways in just 48 hours. Torrential rain lashed the area, turning the Dubar into a raging torrent. A government worker named Saeed Anwar filmed the whole thing from a cliffside. One day it was a peaceful river, the next it was a monster. Saeed's heart sank as he watched the flood rip through his homeland. He was safe on high ground, but thousands of people downstream weren't so lucky. Homes, businesses, everything got washed away. The UN called it a crisis on steroids, with some areas getting 5 to 7 more times rain than usual. The floods destroyed millions of crops, killed nearly 800,000 animals, and impacted over 33 million people. At its worst, a third of the entire country was underwater. Yikes. This happened back on May 28th, 2019, around 6 a.m. in a quiet town called Wellington. A CSX train loaded with all sorts of stuff, fresh veggies, building supplies, even some dangerous chemicals was chugging along near mile marker 43.4 when the train drivers noticed something strange happening at the front of the train. It looked like the first car was acting up. They slammed on the brakes, but the train just wouldn't slow down fast enough. Security cameras caught the whole dramatic scene. Sparks were flying everywhere as the brakes locked up. One of the cars, painted white in the video, jumped the tracks, and then it was like a domino effect. Thankfully, emergency crews got there super quick and nobody got hurt. The good news is, the dangerous chemicals were all the way in the back of the train and they were fine. There was a little leak of fuel from the refrigerated cars, but that was all. Even though nobody got hurt, this whole thing was a pretty expensive mess. The official report said the damage cost over $2 million. Investigators figured out the whole thing happened because the part in the front car wasn't properly oiled. Sounds like a small thing, but it caused a big problem. This happened on December 20th, 2022 around 4 p.m. in a small town called Ardui. A semi-truck got stuck right on the train tracks. The driver called for help and a tow truck company showed up. They got the truck started for a second, but then it died again, stuck right in the danger zone. They tried everything to get it moving, but it was too late. A train barreled down the tracks and couldn't stop in time. The train hit the truck and the first 2 cars of the train jumped the tracks. Thankfully, most of the people on the train only got minor injuries. The crash messed up a whole 500 meters of train tracks. That's a long way. This whole thing is a reminder that following safety instructions is important. There were even stickers at the crossing telling people to call the train company if a car gets stuck. Let's all be careful around train tracks. Back in June 2021, China got hammered by tons of rain that caused floods everywhere. In Nanping, Fujian province, things got especially crazy. A creek called MYUU Creek overflowed, turning into a raging torrent. This flood wasn't just water, it was like a giant soup of mud, trees, and all sorts of debris. This whole mess ended up getting stuck around a steel bridge, piling up like a gross dam. The pressure from all this junk was just too much, and the bridge, which wasn't even 4 years old, just gave way and collapsed. Luckily, no one was on it when it went boom. And guess what? This wasn't the only bridge in China that got wrecked that day. Another bridge in a village called Huting also got messed up by the floods. Thankfully, no one got hurt in either of these bridge collapses. This whole thing is a good reminder that floodwaters are no joke. They're powerful enough to take down bridges. This happened on September 21st, 2022 at an intersection in Aurora. A light rail train was going way too fast, almost 40 miles per hour, around a sharp turn where the speed limit is only supposed to be 10 miles per hour. Because the train was speeding, it went right off the tracks. 2 cars on the train even got disconnected. The train also smashed into a traffic sign and messed up a fence. Luckily, only 3 people got hurt, and it sounds like they're going to be okay. This whole thing caused a big mess. They had to close roads and people had to take shuttle buses instead of the train for a while. Investigators figured out the train driver was going too fast and might have been distracted. To prevent this from happening again, they're going to slow down the trains around that curve, put up more warnings, and look into adding an automatic banking system there. They're also making sure supervisors are assigned properly. The driver who caused the crash doesn't work there anymore, and we don't know if they'll face any criminal charges. This happened in Yunnan province, China, which is known for its beautiful mountains and tons of different plants, like the most in all of China. But those mountains can be dangerous too, with avalanches that can come out of nowhere. Back in early 2022, there was this close call caught on camera. Someone was filming when an avalanche just roared down the mountain. The video cuts to another angle and you see the swallow snow just swallowing everything up. Luckily, a group of hikers nearby managed to dodge it completely. They were probably pretty shaken up, but in the end, nobody got hurt and there wasn't any damage to buildings. A close one for sure. Bismarck, North Dakota is a city on the move, always growing and changing. That means sometimes gotta say goodbye to the old stuff to make way for the new. On October 6th, 2008, it was time to say farewell to the Liberty Memorial Bridge. This bridge had been a landmark since it was built between 1919 and 1922, connecting Bismarck and Mandan across the Missouri River. But by 2008, a shiny new bridge was ready to take its place, so it was time to retire the old gal. There was a whole crowd out to watch the Liberty Memorial Bridge get torn down. They even got a close-up view thanks to cameras set up by the North Dakota Department of Transportation. It was kinda sad to see this historic bridge go, but progress marches on, right? And hey, at least they got it all on camera. This video is from an earthquake in the Aegean Sea, smack dab between Greece and Turkey, on October 30th, 2020. The quake hit a whopping 7.0, and while the Greek island of Samos was closer to the center, the Turkish city of Izmir got hit the hardest. Earthquakes love to bring tsunamis with them, and even small waves can wreck things. This Turkish dude was filming by the water when he saw a wave coming. At first, it wasn't that big a deal, but then his friend spots a giant one rolling in.
Evet bakın oraya tsunami geldi kuzen yürü. Geldi hadi gel. Tsunami arkadaşlar çabuk Tufan. Çabuk. Aha geldi hadi hemen. Dur.
They both booked it for their car as the water started creeping up the beach. Talk about a close call. 2020 was a brutal year for China, a pandemic and massive floods. Over 14 million people in 26 provinces got hit by extreme weather. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes, literally washed away. In Lujiang County, a town in Anhui Province, things got scary for a group of workers. They were fixing a section of a riverbank when floodwaters came raging in and burst the levee. Our workers were stuck on either side, scrambling to use their excavators to plug the gap and escape. This video shows just how powerful the floodwaters were. Those heavy machines were tossed around like toys. By the time this video starts, they'd already tried to plug the hole a few times. At first it was small, but the water just kept coming and getting stronger. The gap grew wider, turning their work area into an island. Thankfully, everyone got back to safety in the end. But those excavators? Well, nobody knows if they ever saw them again. This whole thing is a reminder that Mother Nature is no joke. This happened on March 28, 2021 in northern India. They're building this huge 8-lane highway, the Dwarka Expressway, to connect a bunch of industrial areas. It's supposed to be 17 miles long, but it seems like they keep having problems. On that day, a giant 262-foot chunk of the bridge just collapsed out of nowhere. Luckily, nobody working on it got seriously hurt. There weren't many people around at the time, just a few goats chilling out. All of a sudden, one side of the bridge just gives way and the whole thing crumbles. The goats scatter in a panic, and a car even drives by right as the dust cloud explodes. This isn't the first accident on this project either. Workers are worried that things are moving too fast and safety is getting ignored. They say they have safety measures in place, but maybe they're not enough. The project was supposed to be done way back in 2012, but there have been all these accidents and land disputes holding things up. Some workers think their bosses care more about meeting deadlines than keeping everyone safe. Not a good look. Imagine parking your car in Ankara, Turkey on May 6, 2016, just like any other day. But this day was anything but normal. A giant hole decided to open up right in the parking lot, perfectly swallowing your car whole and leaving all the others untouched. Talk about bad luck. Security cameras caught the whole thing. Your black car slowly sinks into the ground, lights flashing and alarm blaring. By morning, firefighters and everyone else were at the scene, totally confused. Apparently, a broken pipe under the parking lot was the culprit. All that water weakened the ground and boom, sinkhole city at 5 a.m. Local authorities say it was all thanks to a faulty cesspool built way back in 1970. They even sent a firefighter to check things out, but things got even weirder. A vacuum truck showed up to help, but guess what? It also got swallowed by the sinkhole. Yikes. Imagine a chill noodle bar in Sung Noen District, Thailand. This town, about 150 miles northeast of Bangkok, is named after two tall hills next to a big pond, supposedly never flooded, even though it rains a ton in Thailand. Well, all that rainwater goes somewhere, and for this noodle bar, it decided to come up through the pipes. The employees were just getting ready to open when a pipe exploded right outside their door. The ground literally jumps and a dog makes a speedy escape. The poor workers scrambled as a geyser of water erupts, flooding the entire patio. Forget a mop, you'd need a boat for this mess. Reports say the water shot up over 16 feet high, leaving the workers knee-deep in mud. All they could do was wait for it to stop. Then came the cleanup. Outside, you can see where the geyser ripped through the concrete, strong enough to launch giant rocks several feet away. Luckily, no one got hurt. What caused the burst pipe? Did the government help the noodle bar out? We don't know, but we're guessing they weren't serving food anytime soon. Who knows what else was flowing through those pipes besides water? So this video was filmed in Ankang, a city in China's southern Shanxi province. Ankang's weather is all messed up thanks to monsoons. Summers get crazy hot, sticky and wet, with mostly cloudy skies. Winters are the complete opposite, bone-chilling cold, dry and crystal clear. The temperature swings like a pendulum throughout the year, going from freezing to scorching hot. Landslides are a real danger here, especially during heavy rain. That's exactly what happened here. A downpour ate away at the ground around this apartment building, causing the whole thing to come crashing down. Luckily, nobody got hurt.
我上面来的，想说这个善化了。呀，我自己开锅了。还没有。
这条了。嘿呀！
马上去。看，放这看，放这去。
好。
See, the geology in southern Shanxi, including Ankang, is super weak and prone to all sorts of natural disasters. Even though they're constantly mapping and keeping an eye on these areas, it's a huge challenge. There are still a ton of places they haven't gotten around to checking thoroughly. In March 2019, Colorado got hit with a whole bunch of avalanches, the worst they'd seen in forever. It all started with a crazy amount of snowfall dumped in the mountains by these storms called atmospheric rivers. This new snow piled on top of older, weaker snow, creating a super unstable situation. From late February to March, avalanches just kept coming down, hitting everything in their path, even major highways. One particularly hairy moment involved a big slide that buried part of Interstate 70 near Vail Pass. Imagine 6 feet of snow completely covering both lanes of traffic. That wasn't the only closure though. Roads like State Highway 550 were shut down for weeks because of avalanche danger. In total, the Colorado Avalanche Information Center counted over 1,000 avalanches during that time, a crazy high number. These weren't just little dustings either. They caused a lot of damage and could have been super dangerous if people weren't careful. This whole event is a stark reminder that you gotta stay alert and prepared when there's a high risk of avalanches in the mountains. Indonesia's Mount Semeru in East Java is like a grumpy giant sometimes. This volcano, which normally has chill summer eruptions, decided to throw a massive tantrum December 4th, 2021. It was its biggest blowout in ages. Drone footage from a nearby village shows the aftermath. It's like a scene from a disaster movie. Houses are buried under a thick layer of ash, looking like ghosts. The ground is still smoking a day later from the super hot lava. Cars are abandoned everywhere, left behind by people who got out of there fast. Semeru might be beautiful, but it's a reminder that Mother Nature can be a scary force. Lanzhou, China is a bustling city of over 4 million people, located in the Yellow River. It's a major trade hub and industrial center. But in July 2018, heavy rains pounded northwest China for weeks, turning much of Gansu province into a giant lake. The Yellow River couldn't handle all that water and overflowed, sending a torrent ragers. Many people are left cleaning up the mess on their own. This is a close call story from the foggy streets of China. Back in 2016, on January 1st, Nanning got hit with a fog so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Cars were stuck on the freeway, barely moving and basically invisible. One driver, probably fed up with the whole mess, decided to get out and stretch his legs. Good thing he did, because while he was out, a crazy pileup happened right where his car was. Two trucks slammed into each other, and his car would have been toast if he'd been inside. Luckily, he walked away without a scratch, but his car wasn't so lucky. Nobody knows exactly how many accidents that fog caused, but it definitely wasn't the only one. This whole thing is a real reminder that life can be crazy. One minute you're stuck in traffic, the next you're dodging a multi-vehicle pileup. That driver probably learned a valuable lesson that day. Sometimes a little break can be a lifesaver. It's a good thing he decided to get some fresh air, because that fog definitely wasn't the only thing thick that day. This crazy story from Indonesia back in December 2016 shows exactly what not to do. There was this rickety homemade bridge that looked like it could barely hold a bicycle, let alone a truck. But this one driver, feeling super bold or maybe just clueless, decided to see if his truck could make it across. Let's just say it wasn't even close. The bridge folded the second the truck hit it, and the driver barely jumped out in time. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, but his truck wasn't so lucky. This whole thing is a reminder that just because you think you can do something doesn't mean you should. If something looks dangerous, it probably is. Don't be a daredevil. Take a step back and think about your safety before you end up in a heap on the ground. Or worse. This happened on a spooky night, November 13th, 2021, near Montrose, Iowa. A BNSF train full of coal was chugging along next to the river when it slammed into a barge that was weirdly parked right at the edge of the water, hanging over the tracks. It all went down around 11:50 p.m. The crash caused a few train cars, including 2 locomotives, to jump the tracks. Two of the coal cars even flipped over and spilled their cargo right into the river. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but this wasn't a good situation for the environment. About 1,400 gallons of diesel fuel leaked from one of the locomotives, with some of it ending up in the Mississippi. Thankfully, the wind was spilled into the river too. They used a big excavator to scoop it all out, and some government folks, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, are checking to see if any mussels living down there got messed up. The Coast Guard is trying to figure out who owns that rogue barge and why it was parked in such a dangerous spot. This whole thing could have been a lot worse, but at least nobody got hurt. Coachella, California. It's a desert town known for 2 things: the epic Coachella music festival and crazy unpredictable weather. One minute it's sunny and dry, the next, flash floods are raging through the streets. On March 12, 2020, 2 dudes in a black SUV got caught in one of these surprise floods. Their car got stuck on the median and water started rising fast. They were stranded, climbing on top of their car and yelling for help. Luckily, a total hero with a truck and a winch showed up just in time.
Going on by regular citizens here. These guys got stuck. Oh, it's freezing. I can't imagine how cold these guys are. God, it is fucking cold. Go for it, go for it! Alright. Oh, 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 get him across. Get him across. Go, go, go! You got it! Hell yeah! Hey! job, man. Hey, that was a heroic thing right there. Hey, dude, you're lucky to be alive, bro. Lucky to be alive. Look here. Hey, you'll get it out somehow, man. You'll get it out.
We don't know who this mystery Good Samaritan is, but they risked their own safety to save these two guys. Who knows how long they would have lasted on that car roof. Flash floods are a pain in Coachella, but they're kind of a fact of life in this desert oasis. Let's just say these two learned their lesson. Maybe they'll think twice before driving through a flood next time. They owe this middle-aged hero and his truck a serious thank you. Check out this crazy video. A villager up on the cliff caught this whole flash flood going down. The river's turned into a raging monster, churning its way downstream. You can only imagine how scary it must be for the people living down there by the water, watching the swallow water come barreling towards their homes. This video starts out looking like any other day, but then thick fog rolls in across the way. Out of nowhere, there's a massive landslide. Luckily, a security camera and some villagers caught the whole thing. You can see people scrambling for safety as the ground gives way. Half the house got messed up, but thankfully no one got hurt. Look at this whole house just getting tossed around by the floodwaters. The current must be insane. It ripped that house right out of the ground and turned it into a river raft. It gets even crazier when the house heads straight for that bridge, stuck solid. Guess that's one way to get some home improvement done. The hard way. Down near Phoenix, Arizona, there's this big city called Mesa. It's got a lot of people and sits right next to the famous Salt River. This river starts way up in the White Mountains and flows all the way down to the city. Lots of folks love to go there for kayaking and stuff. Well, back in March of 2017, things took a scary turn. Cops got a call about a homeless guy who was stuck in the river, fighting for his life. This guy had set up camp in a part of the riverbed that normally stays dry. There had been a bunch of rain lately, and that caused them to release water from the dam way upstream. The water came rushing down faster than anyone expected, catching the guy completely off guard. He tried to grab his stuff and get out of there, but the current was too strong. He ended up floating away, clinging to a piece of driftwood like his life depended on it. Luckily, a police helicopter pilot saw what was happening. This pilot was a real hero. They swooped in with their helicopter and managed to pull the guy out of the water safely. This homeless fella had already been dealing with a tough life on the streets, and then he had to face the raw power of nature. But thanks to the quick thinking of the cops, he ended up getting the medical help he needed. It was a scary situation, but it showed how a community can come together to overcome even the wildest weather. In the world of souped-up diesel trucks, there's a legend named Sean Becker and his ride, the Master Shredder. This beast of a machine, a Ram 2500, was famous for cranking out a crazy 2920 horsepower. But Becker wasn't satisfied. At an event in Ogden, Utah, he aimed to break the 3,000 horsepower barrier. Let's just say things got a little smoky. During a test run, Master Shredder exploded. Thankfully, Becker and the crowd were quick on their feet, and he escaped with just a few bumps and bruises. The truck, however, wasn't so lucky. The front end and transmission were toast. This whole incident showed just how fine the line is between winning and, well, blowing your engine to smithereens. But hey, even with a setback like this, Becker's love for diesel truck burns bright. He's already said he's gonna rebuild the Master Shredder, stronger and faster than ever. So, this ain't the end of the story for this horsepower chasing machine. Assam's like the big kahuna of northeastern India. Second biggest in land and number one in population. It's got 35 districts, with Dima Hasao being the least crowded. Makes sense though, it's all hilly there, with villages tucked right in. Problem is, those hills turn into flood magnets when it rains. May 2022, monsoon season hits hard. Torrential rain and landslides near Haflong town mess things up big time. Railroad tracks take a beating and a commuter train gets stuck in the middle. But that's just the first domino to fall. Weather folks warn of super heavy rain for days, putting all of Assam on high alert. Reports come in, floods and landslides cut off the train tracks and roads beyond the station, leaving those trains stranded with 1,400 passengers on board. Luckily, everyone gets out safe and finds higher ground before the train flips over. These floods messed with pretty much all of Assam, and the train incident was just a small bump in a much bigger disaster. Close call at the train tracks in Warner Robins, Georgia. This happened near the Air Force Base on May 10, 2023. A truck driver hauling a silver sedan on a flatbed got stuck right on the railroad crossing as the arms came down. Seems like the driver was trying to beat the train and didn't make it in time. He tried to move the truck, but it was no good. The train was barreling down the tracks and the driver barely jumped out before boom, the train slammed into the flatbed, totally wrecking the cab and dragging the car along the tracks. It was a close one for another car waiting behind the truck too. After the crash, someone from the Air Force Base checked on the driver. Apparently, he was trying to turn left when the crossing arms came down and trapped him. Luckily, he got out of there in time. This is a good reminder to never try and beat a train. They always win. This video is nuts. It shows a landslide way up in the mountains. It's terrifying to watch all that dirt and rocks just crumble down the cliff. Thankfully, it looks like no one got hurt in this mess.
Boleh. Gul ka patay ka sa mga. Kalau pusing ka talaga, jangan bicara. Kang boleh kayo.
Hold on, you gotta see this. Flash floods hit the city out of nowhere, wreaking havoc on the sewers. Look at that water raging down the streets like a wild river, totally overwhelming the drains. There's even trash and debris getting swept away in the current. No wonder everyone is scrambling to find higher ground. That's some seriously scary stuff. Imagine Fuyong, China, a city where skyscrapers mix with traditional forms. In June 2022, things got wild. A strong tornado, way stronger than most they get in China, ripped through parts of Guangzhou, a nearby city in the same province. This wasn't your average gust of wind. This thing raged for 5 minutes, carving a path over a mile long on June 16th. Luckily, no one got hurt. Here's the kicker. Tornadoes are super rare in China, with less than 100 a year. And because they're not so common, they weren't exactly prepared for this. Just a few days later, on June 19th, another tornado hit a different city in the same province, Foshan. This was a double whammy of twisters in a short time, something they rarely see. The whole week was basically tornado season for that part of China, which is just not normal. The lack of experience with these storms means when they do hit, the damage can be bad. The Galapagos Islands, a super special place for wildlife, got into a sticky situation on December 23, 2016. It all happened on San Cristobal Island, known for its crazy animals and plants. Here's the deal, a crane with over 500 gallons of oil, which could totally wreck the environment for all the cool creatures living there. Luckily, they were able to clean up the oil spill eventually. But this whole thing is a reminder that we gotta be super careful when we're doing stuff around these super important natural places. These islands are like a paradise for wildlife, and we gotta do everything we can to keep them healthy. A freight train ran off the tracks on its journey there recently. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but it sounds like the train itself wasn't so lucky. They're not exactly sure what happened yet, but it seems like there might have been a problem with the tracks themselves, maybe some broken rails.
Caralho! Vai tombar, vai tombar! Olha lá! Caralho, tombou tudo, mano! Eita porra! Tombou foi tudo, mano.
This happens more often than you might think. In fact, about 15% of train derailments happen because of busted tracks. Imagine a big heavy train moving really fast and hitting a bumpy part of the track. That's kind of what happened here. The wheels hit the bump, couldn't keep hold of the track, and the whole train went haywire. This kind of thing can be a big mess, especially with heavy freight trains carrying a lot of stuff. Luckily, in this case, nobody got hurt. This video will give you chills. A neighbor filmed this whole landslide going down, and it's unreal. You see houses just slowly getting swallowed by the earth. Let's hope everyone got out of there before things got this bad. It's heartbreaking to see homes destroyed in a blink of an eye. This footage is intense. It looks like a man is trying to secure his roof in the middle of a storm. The wind is howling and it looks like he's barely hanging on. He almost got blown off. Luckily, he managed to grab onto a tree branch and pull himself back up onto the roof. That was a close one. This looks like a disaster. People gathered around to see what was happening on the mountain, but then a huge landslide happened. Rocks and boulders came crashing down, blocking the road completely. Everyone scrambled to safety just in time. Landslides can be so dangerous, it's important to stay away from areas that could be at risk. This happened on November 11th, 2019 at the Kacheguda railway station. Two trains, a local train MMTS and an express train Hundrey Express, ended up crashing head-on. The MMTS train was heading out of town and the Hundrey Express was pulling into the station. It seems like the MMTS train missed a red light and slammed into the Hundrey Express as it was switching tracks. Luckily, both trains were going slow, so it wasn't a total catastrophe, but still, 16 passengers and the drivers of the MMTS train got hurt. The crash was so bad that 6 cars on the MMTS train and 3 on the Hundrey Express jumped the tracks. The driver of the MMTS train got stuck in the smashed cabin for almost 8 hours and had to be rushed to a hospital in critical condition. This whole thing is a reminder that following railway signals is super important. This footage of a flash flood in the city is wild. Cars are getting tossed around like toys by the raging current. It's a scary and sad sight to see the power of floodwaters. This is a good reminder to be aware of the dangers of flash flooding and to never drive through flooded roadways. This bus fire looks horrific. Check out this intense video. A bus was engulfed by a massive fireball. Thick dark smoke can be seen coming from it, with intense flames. That's scary. Another nasty truck fire. This video shows a truck completely engulfed by flames. The fire is massive, setting up thick black smoke. Let's hope everyone is okay. Forget your fancy yachts. There's a new speed king in Ratchaburi, Thailand. A 25-year-old inventor there just turned a classic longtail boat, a local icon since the early 1900s, into a fire-breathing monster. These longtail boats, with their super long propeller shafts, have always been known for zipping through shallow water in tight spaces. Originally, they were a fisherman's best friend, invented by clever craftspeople back in the 1930s. But this young inventor decided to take things a step further. He ripped out the old engine and threw in a super powerful drag racing one. Talk about a modern twist on an old tradition. This invention shows the never-ending creativity of Thais, especially those who live by the coast. Now, these longtail boats aren't just for fishing and getting around. They're tearing up the water in races. This video is intense. Look at how flash floods come crashing down the cliffs. The raging water turns the once peaceful place into a disaster zone. Flash floods are a powerful reminder of the destructive force of nature. This video is crazy. Thick black smoke fills the sky, then a huge explosion rips through the air, flames shooting up like a giant inferno. The force of it all even shatters windows in a nearby building. Nobody knows what caused this disaster, but it looks intense. Zigu Canyon in China. Beautiful spot, but also a bit of a rockfall roulette game every year. Up top, it's all dust and tumbling boulders headed straight for the river below. Down at the bottom, there are these tiny cars and people. Yikes. One wrong move from a giant rock and things could get messy. Maybe keep a safe distance next time, folks. Landslides are no joke, and this video shows just how dangerous they can be. In the video, we see people approaching the aftermath of a landslide. They're probably curious and want to get a closer look, but then disaster strikes. A huge section of the mountain suddenly collapses, sending rocks and debris crashing down the road. The people who were standing nearby were forced to run for their lives. This is a scary reminder of why it's important to stay away from areas that could be at risk of landslides. This is a story about John Merriman, a 53-year-old Brit who was super close to becoming a pilot. He was up in his little plane, a microlight, cruising over the English countryside on a beautiful day. It all seemed perfect until the engine cut out at 300 feet, just 10 minutes into the flight. Now, most people would probably panic, but John kept his cool. He remembered his training and managed to land the plane safely, even though he barely missed some power lines and a bunch of cows. The plane itself wasn't so lucky. It got wrecked in the landing, but John walked away without a scratch. Talk about a close call. This whole thing happened because John was trying to get his pilot's license, and that day seemed like the perfect time to practice. Even though his plane got totaled, John still loved flying way too much to give up. He just bought another plane and kept on chasing his dream. So what can we learn from this? Well, flying, especially in small planes, can be risky, but if you get good training and learn how to handle emergencies, you might just be okay. And hey, if you're ever in a tough spot, just remember John and his cool head under pressure. This video shows how a calm river can turn into a monstrous flash flood in just a matter of time. The water current gets so strong that it can wash away even large rocks. Flash floods are a serious danger, especially during long periods of heavy rain. Who needs professionals, right? That's what a group in Johannesburg, South Africa, thought back on March 1st, 2008. This happened way back in 2013 on December 30th in a town called Castleton. A grain train derailed because of a faulty axle, and it ended up blocking the other tracks. Then, an oncoming oil train slammed right into the derailed cars. Big boom. The crash caused a giant fireball and spilled almost 500,000 gallons of oil, leading to even more explosions. The train driver barely had any time to react, caught on camera by their own train. Thankfully, nobody got hurt, but they had to evacuate 1,400 people just to be safe. This whole thing showed some big problems with train safety, especially when it comes to dangerous stuff like oil. It sparked a national conversation about how to keep oil trains safe, and they ended up changing the rules. Investigators said trains need better axle checks. If they had checked the grain train in 2010, they might have caught the problem. They also said it wasn't safe to have just one car between the train engine and the oil cars, and recommended figuring out how many cars are really needed to keep the crew safe. Finally, because of this crash, they got rid of older oil-trained cars that were known to be risky and replaced them with newer, safer ones. Avalanches are powerful and dangerous natural disasters. The thick fog can make it difficult to see, which can be very scary for people in the area. It's a good reminder to be aware of the risks of avalanches and to take precautions to stay safe. This happened on January 25th, 2018, somewhere where they were trying to trim a tree. The problem? The tree was a little too close to power lines, and it ended up falling right on them.
Oh my god.
This is a major reminder that tree trimming near power lines is super dangerous, not just for the people doing the trimming, but for everyone around. Power outages are bad enough, but electrocution is way worse. That's why it's super important to have a plan and follow all safety rules when you're trimming trees near power lines. In fact, the CDC has a whole bunch of stories about tree trimmers who got hurt or even killed because they didn't take the proper precautions. So next time you see someone trimming trees near power lines, hope they're doing it safely. A whoops moment almost turned into a disaster at a local car repair shop back in August 2021. A mechanic was fixing a rusty part under the door of a Honda by welding it. But here's the thing, welding sparks are hot, and sometimes they travel further than you expect. In this case, a spark snuck inside the car and set the carpet on fire. The mechanic didn't even notice at first, and things were about to get really bad. Luckily, another worker saw the flames and yelled. The shop owner, a guy with a shiny head, grabbed a fire extinguisher, but it wasn't big enough for the job. Smoke filled the place, everyone started panicking, it was a whole mess. But hey, these guys weren't quitters. They all worked together, thinking on their feet, and finally managed to put out the fire. Close call, but a good reminder that even routine stuff at a car repair shop can get out of hand if you're not careful. Base jumping is like skydiving's crazy cousin, way more intense and definitely not for beginners. You usually gotta have at least 200 skydives under your belt before even thinking about jumping off a building with a wingsuit. Anyway, in September 2014, a bunch of base jumpers were in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, getting ready to leap off the Menara Kuala Lumpur Tower. It was a beautiful day, and one of the jumpers, Annette O'Neill, even had a camera on her helmet to film the whole thing. But right after deploying her parachute, something went wrong. The parachute lines got all tangled up, and she couldn't steer anymore. Talk about a scary situation. O'Neill had to grab onto different parts of the parachute to try and control her descent as she fell towards the city.
Hey, Brett, do you know any good jokes?
Yeah, I do. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Woo!
Woohoo!
It was a super risky move, but somehow, she managed to land safely on a street below, totally unharmed. Looking back, O'Neill said it was a jump she'd done many times before without a problem, but this whole experience really hammered home how dangerous base jumping can be. Even a tiny mistake or unexpected issue can have serious consequences. So yeah, don't try this at home or anywhere really, unless you're a total pro. These two pals in Lake County, Florida were all about pushing the limits. Dave loved fireworks and Carl loved paragliding. On November 8th, 2014, they decided to team up for a prank that would blow their friends' minds. Here's the deal. Dave used some special exploding stuff near Carl's paragliding path. Like Carl barely dodged an explosion. But here's the twist. Carl had a camera on his helmet, and the footage showed the truth.
Hey, he's about to shoot the camera right.
He's in line. It's a 100-yard target.
Okay.
Holy
That was insane.
The explosion actually sent the fireworks way up in the air, nowhere near Carl. Their friends were totally scared at first, but once they realized it was a prank, they couldn't help but laugh. Talk about an elaborate ruse. This whole thing proves two things. Fireworks are cool, but gotta use them safely, and good pranks take some serious planning. Sanming, China, a city of 2.5 million nestled in the mountains of Fujian province. Beautiful place, except when the weather decides to unleash its fury. June 10th rolls around and things get dicey. Rain hammers the province for days, over a foot of water soaking some areas by the 9th. By the 10th, Sanming looks like a giant bathtub overflowing. Streets, it's a losing battle. Over 75,000 people across the province feel the flood's wrath, with over 21,000 forced to flee their homes. Luckily, no lives were lost, but the storm left a hefty bill of nearly $38 million in damages. Rough times for Sanming, but at least everyone came out safe. This happened back on October 9th, 2006. Two BNSF trains, a local freight train and a southbound coal train, ended up in a nasty crash. The local train was parked on a siding track with a bunch of cars, 115 to be exact, when the southbound coal train, with even more cars, 128 loaded coal cars, came barreling down the wrong track. It seems like the switch that directs trains between tracks was flipped the wrong way. The crew on the coal train saw the problem at the last minute, slammed on the brakes and braced for impact, but it was too late. The crash derailed a bunch of train cars, including some empty hazardous material cars. Thankfully, nobody died, but the engineer and conductor on the coal train got hurt, though they're going to be okay. Investigators figured out the local train crew forgot to flip the switch back after they were done using the siding track. This mistake, along with other things, caused the whole accident. The damage was pretty bad, over $2 million. This whole thing is a reminder that train crews need to be super careful and follow all the rules to avoid disaster. So Rockford, Illinois, the city along the Rock River, it's always been a big industrial center, has been cleaning up its act lately. They took this old abandoned Amaro factory that was just an eyesore by the river and turned it into the swanky Embassy Suites by Hilton Rockford Riverfront. This hotel is now the place to stay for fancy business trips and stuff. It wasn't all smooth sailing though. Back in March of 2018, while they were building this fancy new hotel, the scaffolding they were using for construction totally collapsed. It was a safety nightmare and caused a bunch of investigations.
The tarp. Oh! Yeah! Oh! Woo! Woo! You don't see that every day. Oh!
But despite the setback, they kept at it. The whole project cost a whopping $87 million, but the finished product is amazing. They blended modern design with the old factory's history, and now it's got everything you could want. Fancy restaurants, a pool, even big conference rooms. This project is a big sign of how Rockford is changing. They're working with private companies to fix up the city and bring in more business. Imagine this, New Zealand landed two main islands, the north and the south. The South Island is famous for its mountains, but it can also get some wild weather. State Highway 6 runs way down the South Island for like 722 miles. There's a spot where it crosses the Waiho River, fed by all that glacier meltwater. Well, back in March 2016, it rained and snowed like crazy. The river got super swollen, way higher and faster than usual. This put a lot of pressure on all the bridges crossing the river, and one of them just couldn't take it anymore.
whole bridge is going. Holy shit. Taking it span by span. Do we have it, folks?
It's a bit foggy in the video, but you can see the part of the bridge closest to you went down right before the recording started. Then the broken bit slowly sank towards the water. The rapids were strong and they just battered this reinforced steel bridge until it gave way. The whole thing went tumbling down the river in a mess of metal. The mayor called it a state of emergency. This kind of rain only happens once in 100 years, apparently. But good news, thanks to some quick work by construction crews and the government, they had the bridge back up and running in just 18 days. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it could handle traffic during the day. They just closed it at night to do some more serious repairs that would last longer. This video is from the Philippines back in November 2020 when typhoons decided to play a nasty doubleheader on the country. First up was Typhoon Goni, who left a trail of destruction with thousands of homes damaged. But just a week later, Typhoon Vamco rolled in on November 11th, packing 80 miles per hour winds like a bad surprise. This homeowner decided to film the storm's fury, with power lines snapping outside their house like twigs. Talk about no power outage break. By the time the storm finally blew over, repair crews were already out trying to fix everything Goni messed up. But then bam! Hundreds of thousands of families in the city were back in the dark on November 12th. No power and probably stuck at home with no way to get food or supplies. Not cool, typhoons. In the end, these two storms caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage, making them some of the worst natural disasters the Philippines has ever seen. Pantai Remis, Malaysia, a chill beach town with sand so white it could blind you. But paradise got messed with by a greedy mining company. They were strip mining for tin, not building sandcastles. Nature wasn't cool with that land grab. By October 1993, the miners dug themselves a hole. Literally, they got too close to the ocean, pushing the walls to their breaking point. The mine owner knew things were bad, so he called a local reporter with a tip about a coming collapse. This reporter, braver than most, grabbed his camera and raced to the scene. What he caught on film is legendary, a landslide for the history books. Huge chunks of earth kept peeling off, crashing into the abandoned pit. The ocean, like a pissed-off neighbor, decided to join the party. Water poured over the edge, blasting out the sides like watery cannons. A reporter thought he'd seen it all, but this was just Mother Nature's warm-up.
我ขึ้นไปแถวนี้เดี๋ยวนะโอ้โหชื่อของแก
Tin mining was a huge deal in Malaysia, once producing a ton of the stuff. Back in 1979, they were practically swimming in tin, controlling a big chunk of the world's supply. But good things don't last forever. By the 80s, new sources popped up in Brazil and tin mining slowed down. Plus, mega collapses like this one sure didn't help. Today, you can still see the gash left by the Pantai Remis mine on Google Maps, a reminder right next door to the new, hopefully more careful quarry. The Armitran Bridge on the Pune-Mumbai Expressway was like super old school. We're talking about 190 years old. It was a piece of history, but it was also way too small for all the traffic these days, causing constant jams. So they decided to build a fancy new 6-lane bridge right next to it. The problem? With all those cars zooming by, it was too dangerous to tear down the old bridge the usual way. Enter COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020. The traffic cleared out. It was a perfect opportunity. They drilled a bunch of holes in the old bridge, packed them with explosives, and on April 5th, drone footage caught the whole thing. The bridge went down like a domino effect, one support beam after another, until the whole thing crumbled. Even though it wasn't built with fancy modern stuff, that bridge lasted for almost 2 centuries. But let's be honest, it was on its last legs and couldn't handle all the cars anymore. Now there's a shiny new bridge to handle the traffic flow, and a cool piece of history lives on in videos like this one. Timang, Nepal, a mountain village so high up it practically tickles the clouds, 8,200 feet to be exact. The only way in or out is on roads that wind around cliffs. These weren't built for cars in mind, more like trusty mules and traders on foot. Sure, they're paved now, but that doesn't mean they're exactly safe. One road in particular, Besisahar Stromboli, a volcano in Italy, usually puts on a bit of a summer show with some small eruptions, but 2019 was a whole different story. This volcano went wild, especially with 2 big eruptions in the summer. Volcanologists, the volcano experts, were glued to their instruments, keeping a close eye on these 2 blowouts on July 3rd and August 28th. Why? Because 2 villagers on a tiny island right next to the crater were in the danger zone. Not a good place to be when a volcano decides to act up. This video is wild. It all went down in Livingstone, Zambia, on a tourist boat trip on the Zambezi River. On May 23, 2021, things got crazy when a hippo decided to chase the tourists for a good 20 meters. This is a prime example of why you gotta be careful around wild animals in Zambia, especially hippos. These giant guys might look slow and cuddly, but in the water, they can boogie. And trust me, you don't want to mess with a grumpy hippo in its own territory. This chase went viral because it shows just how powerful and unpredictable wildlife in Africa can be. Luckily, the tourists got away safe and sound. The hippo eventually rejoined its group. This is both a thrilling story and a reminder to anyone adventuring in Africa. Respect the wildlife. It's beautiful out there, but these animals are wild for a reason. Weihua, China, a city in the southern part of Hunan province, was throwing a goodbye party for a bridge. This old bridge was over 1,000 feet long, but it just couldn't handle all the traffic anymore, so it was time to make way for a bigger, better bridge. A big crowd showed up to watch the old bridge get blown up. The demolition crew rigged it with explosives, but for some reason, they covered it with a tarp that didn't really do much to contain the dust. At the end of the video, you can see a glimpse of what the new bridge will look like. Hopefully the traffic jams won't be as bad then. The old Missouri Bridge, built all the way back in 1936, connected Warren County and Franklin County for years. It was like the glue holding those two communities together. But after all that time, and with over 10,000 cars rumbling across it every day, the bridge just wasn't safe anymore. The Missouri Department of Transportation figured it was cheaper to build a brand new bridge than to keep patching up the old one. So they built a shiny new one right next door. But that left the question, what to do with the old bridge? They decided to turn Demolition Day into a bit of a party. A whole crowd showed up on April 11th, 2019 to watch the old bridge go boom.
Here it comes. Holy cow. Here it comes. Here it comes.
It wasn't just getting old, it was also way too narrow for all the traffic these days. And forget about having shoulders or handling heavier trucks. They were constantly having to fix it up, so a new bridge just made sense. The new bridge cost about $62 million and it's much better. Nice wide lanes and big shoulders on both sides. No more white knuckles while you cross the river. The Fulton Bridge in Cleveland, Ohio was built in 1932 for the zoo. Back then, it had 6 lanes of traffic. Can you imagine all those cars zipping over the animals' heads? Over time, they took out some lanes until only 2 were left. By 2007, the bridge was just too old and unsafe. So it was demolition time. On April 28, 2007, the crew showed up to blow the bridge up. But there was a problem with the wiring, like a bad fuse situation. After a quick fix, they were ready to try again. Here's the crazy part. The explosion only took down a chunk of the bridge. The part over the train tracks was still standing, so they had to wait a whole week to finish the job. This bridge had seen better days. A few years before, they had to put up a giant net to catch any falling bits from hitting zoo visitors. And in 2006, they found asbestos in the bridge. Not good. Finally, in 2007, they got it down for good. The Utah Highway Patrol just released some crazy dashcam footage. Back in July 2017, a car on Highway 8991 near Wellsville totally swerved into oncoming traffic and slammed into a truck. The impact is insane. The truck explodes in a giant fireball, engulfing the road.
88 southbound.
It's unclear why the car crossed the lanes, but whatever it was, it ended in a deadly crash. Riau Province, Indonesia. Population 6.6 million and home to some of the wildest waves you'll ever see. They're not ocean waves though. These are river monsters called Bono waves. The South China Sea throws a tidal tantrum here, sending waves surging up the Kampar River. The river starts out wide, but as it gets closer to the sea, it funnels the water in, creating massive tidal bores. These waves are so gnarly they put the whole, so be careful out there. Here's the deal with the airport on St. Bartholomew in the Caribbean. It's called a bunch of things: Gustav III, St. Bartholomew, or St. John. But the most interesting thing about it is definitely not the name. This airport has a runway shorter than most football fields, at just over 2,100 feet. On top of that, it's right next to a road and ends basically right at the beach. No wonder landings here are tricky. Pilots need a special license just to attempt it, because they have to come in super steep and stop fast to avoid a swim in the ocean. Despite all that, aviation experts say it's actually a safe airport. Why? Because only highly qualified pilots with special training can land those little planes here. We're talking mostly small tourist charters with fewer than 20 passengers, like Pilata's PC-12s or Cessna Grand Caravans. Landing here is an experience, that's for sure. The runway is at the end of a slope that leads right onto the beach, so plane spotters and beach bums get an amazing close-up view of the planes coming in and taking off. It's pretty cool. Of course, with a runway this short and tricky, there have been a few accidents over the years. No surprise there, but overall, the airport has a good safety record. Still, those pilot skills gotta be on point for this wild landing strip. Imagine a summer day in Shandong, China. Everything's chill until July 11th, 2021, that is. 10 tornadoes decided to wreak havoc, ripping through towns and leaving a trail of destruction. One twister, particularly angry, hit downtown Shenzhen City like a wrecking ball. Trees lost their bark, cars went flying, and houses were left in ruins. Videos from different parts of the city showed just how powerful this tornado was and the terrible impact it had on people's lives. The footage is short but scary. You hear this unsettling roar as the tornado tears through a crowded area, then see the aftermath. Overturned cars, smashed windows, and buildings barely recognizable. Another clip shows what might have been a factory construction site, now a tangled mess of debris. Even the forest wasn't spared. Most of the trees were snapped and scattered everywhere. Thankfully, reports say there were only injuries, no deaths, but the exact number of people hurt stayed under wraps. This whole thing is a reminder that Mother Nature can be a force to be reckoned with, even in your own neighborhood. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant, friends.